Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen, depending on where you join us from in the world. Once again, a happy new year to everyone out there. Wishing you all well in this brand new year. So, welcome to Open Up, our live talk show. I'm RJ Horner. I'm your host of Open Up, and I'm also the vice president of Voice of Men 360. So, thank you for, on behalf of myself and the Voice of Men 360 team, for joining us today. Um, Voice of Men 360 is a not for profit organization founded in 2020 based in Toronto, Canada. And we were born out of seeing a tremendous need and stepping up to help provide services for our men and boys to help overcome their life challenges. We're part of International Men's Day, and International Men's Day has been serving for now over 21 years so far, and is represented around in 90 countries around the world who join together to do various activities regularly. International Men's Day follows in 6 pillars, which represent the overall well being of boys and men. And we follow in those same footsteps here. So, why is it so important to open up? Because men and boys are not willing to open up our hearts and share our matters with people. And when we do this, we hold it within ourselves and create not only emotional challenges, but ill health effects. And we want to eliminate that here. So, we've created a forum where we can allow people to share their life journey in our platform. We aim to create awareness about the life challenges and the struggles and the overcomes that our men and boys have to go through in their lives. There are no limitations with gender, age, nationality, or ethnic groups. All walks of life are invited to participate in our programming. Our goal is to make a positive impact on someone's life through this program. Open Up is on Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We bring individuals to each show and let them share their life experiences with you. So before I introduce our guest today, I want to remind you that Voice of Men 360's mission is always delivered with good faith towards peaceful harmony. The views and opinions expressed in today's episode are those of our speakers and do not necessarily represent Voice of Men 360. Our organization engages in discussion forums to offer inspiration and create awareness to the issues of men who wish to overcome their life challenges. We're not providing medical or therapeutic advice. Should you require that type of assistance, we recommend you contact a medical professional immediately. If you have questions or concerns about today's episode or any Voice of Men 360 content, please email us info@voiceofmen360.org. So today, our guest speaker is Brian Morrison. He is a survivor. He is a survivor of child abuse and childhood suicide attempts. At the age of 16, left homeless, followed by 20 years of alcohol addiction that certainly struggled his life, where he was given an ultimatum, 6 months to live. That's not something everyone has to go through, but Brian certainly had to make a decision and made a decision that changed his life for the better. Because Brian is here to tell his story today. So Brian is now launching his own charitable organizations to deal with young boys and men dealing with suicide and having to overcome child abuse. So please welcome, and we'll talk about more of this fingerprint recovery that he's working on, which is an alcohol recovery project. So please welcome Brian Morrison to Open Up. Thank you for joining us today and being willing to share your story with us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Again, we want everybody who's willing to be able to open up and come out to tell their story. You certainly have a good one just by your bio, just what we told people today. But maybe take us back as early as you can, because you said you were a product of the system. You were brought up in the childcare system. Tell us a little bit about your youth as a young lad, if you would.
Yeah, okay. Once again, thank you for having me here. I was, you can maybe tell with my accent, I was born in Scotland in a city called Glasgow, and here in the UK. And for the first few years, I lived with my mother and my father. And then my father went away to work in the oil rigs, and my mother decided to move in with my grandparents. So there was only myself and my mother and my grandparents, and my father never ever came back on the scene. And we lived with my grandparents for quite a few years, and when I was about 7 or 8 years old, things were starting to change, and there was some problems with between my grandfather and my mother. They didn't get along, so we moved out into our own place, and that was when things started to change for the worse, to be honest. At the beginning it was great because there was only me and my mother, and I had my own bedroom, and I moved to a new school for my education. Before very long, I started to get bullied because I didn't have a father figure, and it started to get really severe. And I just felt that I didn't want to live anymore as like like maybe 10-year-old child that was being bullied, and I felt really bad. So my life started off where I would like my mother was on sleeping medication, and I would try to block to end my life as a young child by taking her sleeping tablets. Many times I was rushed into emergency at the hospital, and before long there was a report made to the social services that they who are the people that look after children in the UK, that they felt there was something wrong in the household and that maybe somebody should investigate. And I came home from school one day, and there was some people there, and they decided they were taking me away from my mother's house, and I was taken into a children's home. Now, normally, if you think of a child being taken to a children's home, you think, oh, that poor child. But the day that I went into that first children's home, I was the happiest little child you could ever have met, because I had people around me, I had friends for the first time. Uh, my mother had mental health issues, so I didn't have to worry about that. And as a child, I could just focus on my childhood and let the professionals look after my mother. So I loved it in the children's home. It was amazing, and started to make friends and everything. And then things started to change when about maybe a few years in, there was a new member of staff came to work in the first children's home, and this person decided that they were not going to care for the children as much as everyone else did. And unfortunately, I started to be abused by this male member of staff. So if this person was on duty at night, I would be abused. They always knew.
In what way? Sorry, if I can interrupt. In what way were you abused? Describe something you went through, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, okay. Well, this person would take me in their car and say, we're going to go out for a nice drive to the park. And they would not take me to the park. They would take me to their own house, and they would ask me, would you like to have a shower? Go and have a wash. And then they would actually start to touch me in places. And then they started to really want much more. And that was a regular thing, where this member of staff would take me from the children's home to their house. But they told me that if I ever told anyone, that I would never ever see my mother again. So I could never ever repeat what was going on. So I decided then that I just didn't know. I had no idea how to cope with it, how to live with that. And I tried my best to run away from that children's home. But the problem was I knew that it wasn't going to be much better back in the family home. So what they did was they decided that they kept asking me, why was I running away? but I couldn't tell them why I was running away because this man told me I would never get to see my mum again or my grandparents. I would never see anybody in my family again. So they ended up moving me to another place, another children's home, where it was on the other side of the city, further away from my mother. And I went in there, and this was more of a secure unit where they put people that were young criminals. And I had never done anything as a criminal, but they had nowhere they could put me, so they put me into this place in Glasgow, next door to the prison, which was for young children.
Offenders.
Yep. And they put me in there, and the doors were all locked. The TV, I remember the TV up on the wall inside a cage, and I was terrified. And evenings were the worst in there because there was so many of the young men. We would be sleeping in this room where there was lots of beds, and the male, sometimes females, members of staff would come in, and I would have my eyes open half, and they would touch on one of the young boys' shoulders and say, "Come with me," and tell them to be quiet. And they would take him out the room. And I used to hear these young boys, like myself, crying. And then they would come back in maybe half an hour later and go into their beds and just cry. And then one night, I got the tap on the shoulder, and I was terrified because I didn't know what was going on in that time that they were out the room. And I was terrified, worse or the same as before. Unfortunately, in there, it was worse. I was taken out but myself, again, it was a man. I remember this man, it was an older man with a walking stick, and he would walk with his stick, and he would say, "Keep your mouth shut, come on, come with me." And he would get me to sit on his knee and ask me to undress and sit on his knee and talk to me, and it was awful. It was awful. And he would start to touch me, and I just felt so. Is this what life's about? And I remember at the time that I used to go to this local little church in Glasgow, and I didn't know if I could tell them. And I tried to tell someone once, and I never forget the pastor of this Baptist church turned around and said, "Look, if you want us to help you, we'll try to adopt or foster you and take you into our family." And I remember this meeting one day, and everyone was asking me, "Why are you wanting to go with them? Why are you trying to run away from all these places?" And I couldn't say, because again, this man with this walking stick was telling me that he would kill me. He actually was telling me as a child that he would kill me, and he would go out and he would kill my mother if I was to tell anyone. So I couldn't tell anyone. And it didn't go through. That this minister didn't get to adopt or foster me, and I had to stay there. And that abuse continued, unfortunately, while I was there for a long time. I would then move to my final children's home, and I was there, I'd say, between the ages of 13, 14 and 16 years of age. And in there, I met some amazing young people who I'm still friends with today. But unfortunately, there was, I will never forget this couple. There was a man and woman who worked in the children's home. The little woman was lovely. Her husband was amazing when they were at work. But he decided that when they were both working together on the same shift in the children's home, their house was empty. So once again, like the first children's home, the husband would take one or two of us out and take us to the park. This is what they were telling their bosses at the children's home and his wife, but was taking us in the car and actually taking us to his house. So again, this was, as soon as I saw the door of this house, I straight away I thought, I know what's coming here. And unfortunately, after the first 2 or 3 visits, he started taking us on our own. And I know that there was one other boy in the children's home, unfortunately, who was taken there. Don't know what happened to him, but I know when I went there, I was abused sexually. And I remember he used to put the TV on and he would sit and say, "Have you been with girls?" And he used to even say to me, "It's okay to touch boys." And I would say, "I don't know what you mean." And he would actually say things like that to me. "You can touch men and boys. It's okay, as long as you don't tell anyone." And he didn't ever threaten me. He just kept saying to me, "You really don't want people to know because people won't want to know you. You'll get locked up forever. You'll go back to that place that you were in next to the prison, and you'll never ever get out if you tell anyone what we're doing here." And that was really, really hard because he actually, I'll be honest with you, maybe for the first time that I've ever said this, and he confused my sexuality by saying it was okay to touch men and as a child and all of that. He really confused me, and I had no idea what was going on, and it got to the point where when I went back to the children's home every time, I would go away into my room and I would speak to the older children because they were always happy. And I wanted to know how they were happy. And they told me that they didn't go to school. They all met up as a group and they used to take something to help them be happy. So I didn't know what they meant. And that's when I first ever found alcohol, because I went to the park with the children. And when I found out what alcohol did to me as a child, I thought, oh, hold on. If I drink this, then I can block out in my head this abuse that I'm going through. But I didn't know it was abuse at the time. I just knew it was something that I did not like. And I did not like this old man. Like, I was a child, so he was old to me. I did not like this old man touching me and doing what he was doing to me. So unfortunately, I decided to start using all of my pocket money and any money I had to buy alcohol. I used to stand outside the shops. I would ask people to go in and get me alcohol. The group of us in the children's home would buy alcohol in bulk. And it got to the point that every time this member we always knew who was coming on duty. And when I knew this man was coming on duty, I would know that that was the point to go out and get some drink in my system, because I knew that maybe in a few hours I'd be getting abused again. And that was the start of my alcohol addiction as a young, I'd say maybe 14, 15 years of age. So, and that was, I would say maybe 6 years, 5, 6 years of abuse within 3 different children's homes. And then, of course, when I got told 1 week before my 16th birthday that it was time to move on, and I said, where do I go? And I was told, you have to go back to the family home. And they had tried this out a few times before. And unfortunately, when I went back to the family home for weekends for them to prepare me going back forever, something else happened, that there was somebody within my community. I around where my mother lived who decided that they wanted to abuse me. So unfortunately, I started to be abused by another man within the community where my mum lived. So I was now being abused within the family community, like that area, the community, and I was being abused within the children's home. So every time I was going home for a weekend, this male that lived near my mother would abuse me, and then I would be told not to say anything because no one would believe me, and then I would go back to the children's home and be abused by the member of staff. So I felt that I couldn't tell my mother it was happening because it was happening from someone that she knew that lived in her area. And I couldn't go back and tell the children's home because it was happening in the children's home too. So I decided then that I just thought, what do I do? And the only thing that I knew how to cope with life was to drink alcohol. And that was my start. I would say that's when my 20 years of alcohol addiction started at 16.
So you certainly had justification for why you had been drinking all those many years. But again, then you were faced with that thing that we all dread. We all don't want to hear. Those dreaded words, you have 6 months to live, right? You heard those words. What was that like? What happened then?
I will never forget it. 20 years of drinking every single day. I still to this day don't know why, but I remember I was in the hospital after many, many times, and I woke up in the hospital one day, and they said that I had stopped breathing, and they didn't. I was bringing up a lot of blood, and they said, "Look, we've told you many times that this will get to a point where you end up being found dead." And they said, "We've done some tests, and unfortunately, we're going to say to you, you've maybe got 6 months to live." And I'll never forget, it was in March 2005. It was coming up to my birthday or on my birthday. And I remember just thinking, oh my goodness, I'm like coming up to 35 years of age now. And what do I do? And the first thing I did was I left that hospital. I ran out the hospital when he told me. And I remember climbing up this tower that was part of the hospital at the time. And I wanted to jump. I just wanted to end it there and then. And I thought, my life's over. I don't want 6 months of this because I was taking seizures then because of the alcohol. And luckily enough, I got off that building. The fire and the police and people like that were involved. But I got down and I just said, look, I can't cope with this. And I just cried. And then I said, look, how do I stop? And I said, I've tried on my own. I can't do it. And for the first time, I asked for help that day when they said to me 6 months. And that was in March. On the 30th of June that year in 2005, I got the phone call. And it was, we've got a bed available. Can you go in? And I said, yes, get me in there now, please. And I'll never forget that journey. A liter bottle of vodka or whiskey, I can't remember what it was, in my hand. And a good friend of mine, John from Alcoholics Anonymous, he drove me down to Wentworth House, which was the detox unit, and saying goodbye to my best friend. But when I say saying goodbye to my best friend, I do not mean John in the car. I mean that bottle. That was my best friend for over 20 years since I was in the children's home and started drinking. And it was saying goodbye to that to try and save my life. And I had to put it down and walk in that door and deal with a very intensive detox.
Yes, no, and listen, that's brave. Listen, first of all, you use two words that not many men can utter, right? We're too brave, we're too proud, we're too stubborn to say, I need help. And
Yeah.
I was in the same place. Listen, the day I changed my life for the better was because I said, that's it. I can't do this by myself. I need help. And then I got the counseling, I got support, and I got help. You know what I mean? It does change your life, right? I think, in my experience, anyways. How about in yours?
Oh my God. Do you know I've got my hands are tingling now. When I got the help, it was like, now I do not feel bad. If I want help for anything, I ask for it because your life can get so much better. But men have to speak out. We have to speak
Right.
out and ask for that help.
Right. And then so now you've gone through this journey. You've, experienced all these things for yourself. You're proud, I'm thinking, that you're still here. Yes?
Oh my God, I love life and I never want to leave this world.
Right. So now you do to help others, right? You don't want others to walk that journey, or at least if they do walk that journey, let's get them out of it, right? So that's the kind of life you lead. Tell us about what you do now.
Okay, well, when I was 1 year sober, I went into detox on the 30th of June 2005. On the 30th of June 2006, I celebrated 1 year sobriety by opening up an AA meeting in Blackpool in England in the UK, which was open to everyone, where I wanted it to be completely open, where it doesn't matter of your gender, your sexuality, whatever. I wanted everyone to have an AA meeting where they could come and they could get support. They could bring people with them, family and things like that. And I named it the Wentworth Group after the detox unit that I was in. And I can happily say that that meeting still runs every Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock, even today. And it's still called the Wentworth Group. So I did that. And then I launched Fingerprint Recovery at the same time, which was where I wanted to support people who maybe had a similar background to myself, anybody that was struggling with alcohol to maybe come off it and get into recovery. But unfortunately, in 2006, the word recovery uh, in the UK was not known. If you shouted the word recovery, the treatment services would shout you down and say, no, no, no,
Mhm.
it's not about recovery, just stop. And I'm like, no, it's about recovery and getting a new life. And I'm glad now that that's changed in the UK. But it was a hard, because I was the only one out there shouting recovery, and I was being told, no, leave these people alone. You're just an ex-drunk. You have no experience. And unfortunately, I still get that today. I get people telling me that I'm not a doctor. I should stop doing what I'm doing. And I'm even told that from the professionals sometimes, that you're not a professional, stop what you're doing. But no, I've ran support groups. I still get phone calls every single day now, all these years later. I mean, I'm now 16 years sober, 16 years sober last year, and I still get phone calls now from people. And I actually, for the very first time last year, decided to come out and speak up as a man, and say that I was abused, because I didn't
Mhm.
tell anyone. I was still hiding that part about me. I would shout about the alcohol, but not the abuse. And I decided to come out because I seen a lot of things in the news in Scotland where I lived and where I was abused, and it ended up there was a lot more people being abused, and I had no idea. I thought I was the only one. And then when I researched it and I seen that so many other people were being abused these at the same time as me in all of these children's homes, and it wasn't just in Scotland, it was all over. So I said, look, I'm going to now come out and just say, look, I was abused. And I'm now doing some things with the Scottish government, because they've now decided that they've put their hands up and they've owned up that they knew
Nice.
the abuse was going on, but they didn't know how to deal with it back then. So they're now offering compensation to all of the the adults now who were abused back at these times. And they've already been in touch with me. And I mean, I've got here this large, massive envelope that just came this week. And this is a massive pack to claim this compensation. But what I decided was, when this is awarded, I am going to, like my own business that I run now, I am going to give 50% of that. Whatever that compensation is, I want to use that to help others, like I do with the alcohol. And this is where I'm moving. I'm moving back to Glasgow, where I was abused and where all this happened. I left 30 years ago because of all of that happening in Glasgow. I decided to leave, and I didn't ever want to return. Things have changed. I've got a lovely sister. I've got family, and things have now changed. So I'm now returning to Glasgow this year to live back in that city that I was terrified of as a child. And I'm going back there to set up a new charity this year for male survivors of child abuse. And this is where I'm going to use this part of this compensation to help me to set up this charity, to help all these people that were abused, and also continue the work, of course, of fingerprint recovery.
Beautiful. Such an aspiration, and a noble cause too. Like I said, you've come out with such an amazing story, and the fact that you have been able to open up about your traumas, not many people can do that. So I applaud you for that. Do you ever feel there is an opportune or a good time to open up?
I think personally that you have to be ready, 100%, because if you do it too soon, it can backfire. If even if it is too soon, as long as you've got the right person around you. I mean, I've listened to your shows here, your guests many times, and I believe as long as you have an organization or somebody that you can call out to share that with, that you know that will not repeat it until you're ready. If you're never ready, then that's fine. Like me, the amount of people that I've told my story to, that it's never been repeated until I was ready. As I said there, nobody knew that I was really abused until last year, until I spoke out about it. All they kept hearing from Brian Morrison was, I was an alcoholic. I still am an alcoholic, but I don't drink. But what I mean is, that's all they ever heard from me. I would never say why I drank. I would blame it on different things, but I would never mention the abuse. Mm-hmm. But the great thing is, I was ready to then go public and say, if I can help others by sharing my story. But yeah, the answer again is just, it's the right time when you feel it's right, but have somebody there you can share it with before going public so they can support you.
Absolutely. I think, no matter what, and that's why some people seek a psychiatrist or a psychologist, is because getting it off these lips, it gets it off the chest, it gets it off, maybe off the mind a little, so that we can deal with it, right? So even just getting it out, that's a big burden lifted. And so I think we offer that here, I'd like to believe. But of course, we are getting it out to the public. Maybe people aren't ready for that. But that's the idea, is, look, people like yourself coming to share your story today, which, look, you've been through some trauma that other males have been through. We've proven that on this show. So other males, this is the things that people have to go through. But thank you for being able to share that journey with people, because it's going to help people. So what would you say in parting is some advice or guidance for our young male youth out there to take their journey?
Young male youth right now is really to get, I mean, things are so different from when I was a child. There are so many organizations out there all around the world, not just here in the UK, globally. And it's really to go out there and get involved. Any young boys or men out there is to get involved in these organizations that are supporting before your life does, before you get older, because trust me, it is so hard out there when you're alone. Like when I got to like 16 and I was homeless, and then things got worse as I grew, as I got older and older while I drink. Grab hold of all of these youth organizations for young people. I mean, in every country, but if you're between 16 and 21 or 25, there is so many organizations out there that can help you in so many areas. And believe me, nowadays there's that many. There's no reason why you cannot grab a hold of one of them, and it will help you grow into adulthood and have an amazing life.
Mm-hmm. And I think regardless of whether it's a support group, or you know what I mean, or whether you're struggling, just finding a men's group or camaraderie group that you can spend time with and develop with and maybe get things off your mind with and things like that, that can be beneficial. But if you do have specific issues like yourself, you know what I mean, you went through alcoholism, you saw people in alcoholism treatment, you know, if you're willing to go into treatment for sexual abuse, and you know what I mean, there's an environment where you're seeking support in a more direct, influential area in your life, right? So I would recommend that if that's out there for you, go seek that. You need that, go find that. But just, you know, any men's group, any support group, I think that's what we're saying, right?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, I'm now like, as I said, I'm like 16 years sober, just starting to open up about the abuse. But right. I also have just been in touch with an organization here, which is group sessions with other men who have been abused. So even me now, I'm still doing this because it's still fresh. I've only come out publicly and said I was abused. Right. So but yeah, definitely grab hold of all that support.
And like you mentioned, there's so many groups out there at this day and age. We are just one of them here. And we are a public access group. So I think we're doing great work. And so thank you for being here with us to open up and share your journey and being willing to talk about what you shared with us today.
Thank you very much for having me and helping me to get my story out there.
Absolutely. So that was Brian Morrison, and he's the founder of Fingerprints Recovery. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your journey with us today, Brian. Again, in closing today, Voice of Men, don't forget, is running a special campaign. We call this one the Self-Care for Indigenous Men, where we're collecting those goods still. Idea is we're collecting those goods that men need. Deodorants, razors, socks, hand towels, other men's items, you know, gift cards, things of support like that. We're working to collect those items until January 31st. We're on that project. So please coordinate with us. Call us at 416-356-7414 or our phone number 437-889-8329. Email info@voiceofmen360.org or contact us through Facebook Messenger. We're working to coordinate to collect those items. If you prefer, you can also donate and send an e-transfer to info@voiceofmen360.org. We have several live shows we take place here in Voice of Men 360. The first of which you just participated in is called Open Up, where we invite people to share their life journey and tell their story. This takes place Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So thank you for joining us for that today. Then we have Vili, which means I in Tamil language. So we do the same thing with Open Up, but in Tamil language, where again, people share their life journey Sundays at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. We also host a special webinar here for the first Saturday of every month, where we bring out organizations to discuss a particular topic of interest to them. And of course, of interest to our community as well. And then we host the Unspoken Tears. This is a special show the second Saturday of every month, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, where the focus is domestic violence against men, bullying, male sexual abuse, traumas, and human trafficking. These things happen, and we discuss them here in Voice of Men 360. We also co-host a show with with the All Bengal Men's Forum called the South Asian Men's Show, where we invite people from different countries of South Asia to talk about a concern of interest to them at the time. And now we've also started a new program called Author Circle. Please join us for that the third Saturday of every month, 10 a.m., 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So please join us for that. And then we turn all of our content into podcast episodes. So look for us on all of your favorite platforms: Google, Spotify, Apple, and more. And then we host some support groups here. The first one is By Men for Men Only. Every 2 weeks, Tuesdays from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Please join us this Tuesday, January 11th, for the Open Up Men's Peer Group. Register through Zoom. And then we have the Indigenous peer-to-peer support group. This one is called Pass the Talking Stick. That takes place the fourth Friday of every month, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. through Zoom. And then now there are no limitations again with gender, age, nationality, or ethnic groups. All walk of life are invited to participate in our programming. If you want to be a guest on our shows or willing to be a part of our organization and help us, whether directly or indirectly, please reach out to us. We'd love to work with individuals, professionals, corporations, NGOs, government associations, and more. Our phone number is 437-889-8329. Email us info@voiceofmen360.org, which makes our website www.voiceofmen360.org. Don't forget to find us on all of your social media platforms: Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. And then visit our Facebook group. We're looking always to increase the word and increase our membership. We're looking to raise the awareness to 5,000 members. So please help share that message. Our Facebook group again is facebook.com/groups/voiceofmen360. Thank you for joining us again today. Again, we want all the support and help, and please continue to share and raise awareness for this message.
Sorry, RJ.
You have an announcement, Sivam?
Yeah, we do have an announcement. I will display the poster, and then if you can read it, the special panel discussion that's going to be on 29th.
Okay, I didn't get notifications. So
yeah, this one
looks
here.
like we are hosting a special panel discussion. This one is Saturday, January 29th, 2022, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So please join us for that. The topic is a healthy generation, creating safe schools. And that is in honor of what is that day? January 31st is a special day of awareness.
International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Men and Boys.
Right. So that is our initiative for that day, which is created again by Dr. Jerome Tilak Singh in awareness of Voice of Men and International Men's Day. So again, please join us for that panel discussion, January 29th, 9 to 11 a.m. And then, so thank you for joining us today, folks. Again, I'm RJ Horner, your host, asking you to open up.